Hey, it's Ian. All right, so we got another fun tutorial here. In this one, I'm going to show you guys how to create this sort of like advected, tendrily colorful thing. It's like grass or tendrils or something. It's an effect that I really enjoy. I've used it a few times for concert visuals. I used it once for Seven Lions and another one for this guy, Virtual Riot. It's pretty useful. It's fun. The results are cool, and it's actually really easy to set up, which I really like. So let's get into how to make this. So we're basically, the way this works is we're going to use a smoke simulation to create the motion, and then we're going to use Vellum hair, and that's going to be advected by the smoke simulation that we make. So you can totally do this in Houdini native smoke stuff, of course, but honestly, I prefer to use Axiom. If you've never heard of Axiom, you should definitely check it out. I don't use a ton of plugins for Houdini, but there's like 3 or 4 that I just completely rely on, and Axiom is definitely one of them. It just simplifies the process of making smoke and fire. It's so easy, and it's much faster than the native Houdini tools. I don't know how they did that because they're using the same software. It's just it's almost real time, whereas the Houdini one is really slow. So I like to use it. It's much easier. So cool. Let's dive in and make something. So let's make the smoke sim. So we're going to start with a circle, and let's make it on the XZ plane. 12 divisions, that's totally fine. Great. And then we're going to scatter some points on it. And let's do, let's relax iterations. And then, turn the relax iterations on just to 0 or whatever, or turn it off. And then let's just do like 5,000, something like that. Cool. Okay. And then what we want to do is we want to put down a wrangle. Don't worry, this is not going to be insane code. All we're going to do is give these some normals that are equal to the point position. So all we have to do is do v at n equals v at p. That's it. So what that does, if I click on the normals, it makes it so the normals point in the direction of basically from 0 to the point. From 0 to each point, it creates a normal pointing in that direction. So they're pointing outwards. Now they're all different sizes right now because they're all different lengths away from 0. So to make them all the same size, we can just do normalize like this, and then put a little end thing on the other side. There, now they're all the same size. Great. Okay, then what I want to do is put down an attribute adjust vector. And here's where we can have a little more control over randomizing it. Now, I don't want to randomize anything in the y direction. I only want this to, because this is basically going to turn into the velocity that pushes the smoke outwards. And I don't want it to be pushed upwards or down at all. I only want it to be pushed sideways. So we're going to change this to multiply. And then we're going to go noise. And we're going to go 0 centered. And right now it's not doing anything because it's trying to adjust the attribute v, which we don't have. We're trying to adjust n. There we go. Okay, so we've got this noise. You can see that it's noised it up a bit. Let's just do like 0.06. Okay, and then we're going to animate the noise. We'll do a pulse duration of 0.73, something like that. So if I hit play, you can see it's all moving around. Cool. And then something else, you notice that these are all really short now. I want these to have a larger magnitude. So what I can do under the amplitude here is just put a couple of zeros after that. Boom, got a very extremely high pressure, it's going to be like a high pressure force pushing our smoke outwards. Okay. Now right now this is n. I don't want this to be n. I want this to be v. So we can just put down another wrangle, and all we have to do is tell n to be v. So V at V equals V at M. Oops, make sure this is lowercase. That's it. So now if I click on the velocity, there we go. Simple as that. Okay, then what we want to do, we need to turn this into a VDB. So let's do VDB from particles. Put that here. And let's give this like a voxel size of 0.05, something like that. And then let's change the point radius scale to be like 0.112. These are just some values that I found that worked. And then we want to rasterize some point attributes. So if we click the plus sign, we just click V and change it to Vel. Cool. Okay, and then merge. Put down a merge here. Okay, and then the next thing we want to do, I want to make sure this has a collider. Well, first, let's just plug this into the Axiom sim, and I'll show you how this is going to work first. We'll do the collider here in a second. So I'm going to put down an Axiom solver, and this, by the way, this should not be a distance VDB. We need a fog VDB, and it should be called density. There, okay? So we'll plug this into the Axiom solver. And let's just see what happens. So if I just let me just change this to background to dark so we can see. Background. I like to use the dark mode when I'm working with smoke because I can actually see what the hell is happening. So if I hit play, it's working. Okay, so it's being driven by, the only force that it has is velocity. There's no gravity, there's no nothing else. It's just velocity. Cool, so it is working, great. Okay, so let's change a few things. Well, see, right now, it's advecting down as well. I want there to be like a collider, like a floor plane for it to collide with. So what we're gonna do is we're going to put down a box. And we're gonna make this box be like pretty big, 27 by 27, something like this. And then we're gonna make it thin. Let's make it like 0.4. And then if I hit 3 on the keyboard, I wanna move this down so that it is flush with but basically just under the 0 line, like minus 0.4, something, no, minus 0.2, something like that. Let's actually look at the VDB from particles. Okay, so maybe this needs to come down a little more. Yeah, like this, like right underneath our emitter. Okay, cool. And then we're gonna take this and make it a VDB from polygons. Now, in order for this to be a collider, in order for this to work as a collider, we need a distance VDB, but we need to name it collision. So that's all you have to do. To get it to work with Axiom, it just needs to be named collision. And then all you do is just merge it in here, and it should work. So once I hit, if I hit this again, it should be colliding with the floor. Yep, so now we have this sort of like flattened bottom, which I really like. I like the look of that a lot more. Cool, okay, so what else can we do to adjust this? Let's shape the sim a little bit. So let's go into the main. The sourcing. And under source, we can increase the density. So basically this just sort of multiplies how much density is coming in. So now it's like thicker smoke. It's heavier, it's gonna advect more. Okay, I can also multiply the velocity. So right now it's not going out very far. It's only kind of dissipating right here. I want it to go out much farther. So let's change the velocity to like 3. So it's like a lot higher. So now, look at that. Shoots out faster and farther. Okay? We can also give it some pressure. Let's give it a pressure of 2, which sort of like makes it bulge out more. It's like almost like an explosion a little more. And then under, we'll have to adjust the sub-steps in a little bit, but for now, let's leave that alone. Under simulation, under the simulation tab, under density, we can leave that the same. Temperature, I think we can leave that the same. Velocity here, let's change a few things. So the buoyancy, let's try 2. See if that does anything. We don't have any temperature right now. So temperature is what makes it rise upwards. The only thing driving this is velocity. So this is basically like cold smoke. It's like, think of it as like dry ice, basically. It's not really moving upwards. There's no forces pushing it upward except for velocity. Let's give it some gravity though. So if we give it gravity, so here's with gravity, it's gonna sort of sink down low and adhere to the ground a little more, which is what I want. More like a dry ice effect. Oops, give me that back. Okay, and then the other thing I can do is, so I've added this buoyancy, but it's not really, by default, if you, in Axiom, you have like, these are sort of your main multipliers, but then each one of these little things has its own little tab down here where you can sort of dial it in more. So buoyancy, if we come down to buoyancy, it's in the 1 direction, meaning it's going upwards, which I don't want. I actually want it to be -1. So now it should be pushed downwards more. That's great. I want it to like adhere to the floor as much as possible. And then if you go to turbulence, you can also go to turbulence. You can adjust, the speed, the swirl size, all that stuff. But I think for right now, that's really all I need. And then, okay, a few other things. So when you're working with advection, especially if you're working with Axiom, you have to make sure that you go to this output and you go to fields and compression. So right now, if you look at the velocity scale, it says 1/2 and everything else is 1/1. So if it's at 1/1, that means it's gonna cache this at like the full resolution. If you're making a smoke simulation and you want to actually see the smoke simulation, you're not going to advect anything, leaving the velocity scale at half resolution is fine because you're not really going to see it. You really only see the smoke. But when you're advecting something with it, it needs to be the full resolution. If you don't do that, then there's going to be like these weird errors when you try to advect something. And then you want to make sure, I think there's something with the mask field that you need to do. Where is it? Mask field density, just turn mask field off. And then velocity stage should be corrected. And I think that's pretty much it. Want to make sure you're outputting velocity, temperature, density. Great. Okay. That's pretty much it for the smoke simulation. The last thing we need to do is just come to the main and just increase the sub steps. So when we do that, there's a lot less like jitteriness. The smoke looks a lot nicer. And of course you could make this higher resolution. You could make this 0.03 and it'll look like if you're actually making a nice, like a smoke simulation, you're gonna want this to be, a higher or a lower division size so that you can get some nice resolution, but we're not actually going to see the smoke. We're just advecting, we're going to be advecting some like tendrils. So it doesn't need to be a very high resolution simulation because we just need the velocity. But even look at that. Let's look at this. It's at 0.3. It looks pretty nice. And the viewport performance is pretty good. Compared to the native Houdini smoke tool, this is like way faster. It's awesome. I really recommend that you guys get this. It's really, really, really worth it, especially if you work with smoke and stuff a lot. So I'm just going to leave this at 0.5 though. And then we will cache this. So let's see what kind of things we have here. We got a whole shitload of things we don't need. So let's just put down a blast. And we're going to go delete non-selected. And the things that I want to keep would be density, temperature, vel. So now, that's weird. I think, okay, so we've how much? 13 megabytes here. 13, well, maybe it's not that important. So, okay. So then let's put down a file cache. And we'll just call this Vel shock wave. Cool. And yeah, 240 frames is fine. And let's just save this to disk. Should go pretty quickly. Great. I won't make you watch. I'll pause the thing. Okay, so we've got our shockwave. Great, nice and speedy. Let's put down a null. And we'll call this out vel. Great, okay. Done with that part. So now that we've got our smoke sim, we're gonna make some grass and we're gonna advect it. So let's put down another geo. Nope, not that. We'll call this grass tendrils. Okay, let's put down a grid. Grid. God, I cannot type sometimes. Make sure we turn and hide other objects. I don't need to see that. Let's do 100 by 100, and let's make this pretty large, 35 by 35. Okay, and then let's put down a hair gen. Hair gen. Okay, and what this does is just generates a bunch of little hairs, which basically just a bunch of lines. I don't need it to be that dense. Let's do like 148, something like that. And then for, let's see, I think the rest I can just leave at default. Attributes and appearance, I think that's pretty much the same. So something I can do though is we can do an attribute randomize to make these random links. So go attrib randomize. Where is it? And what I want to randomize is a point attribute called unguided length. Unguided length. Okay, and then we want to do, it's a one-dimensional value. And let's do between minus 2.6 and 0.7. Let's see. Does that do anything? Okay, so then let's put down a guide process. Guide process. Okay, and then what this does, so something I forgot to do in the hair gen, these are really short, so we need to come to length and just change it to 1. That'll make them all longer. And I think, I don't know if this is even doing anything. I thought this was doing something. Unguided length, yeah, it's, interesting. Oh, 8.7. Is that doing anything? I thought I was doing something. Well, maybe not. Okay, well, ignore that for now. And then this guide process, we can come in here, change it to operation can be set length, and then mode multiply. We can change the minimum or the change it to randomize and 0.3 by 1.4. So that's giving us the randomness we need. I don't think we needed this unguided length thing. Maybe I was wrong. And then just change the random seed to something else. Cool. Okay. Then what we want to do is resample. Because right now these are all There's a lot of dots there. Or maybe not enough. Let's resample it. We'll do 0.09. Just give it a few more samples. And then we want to give it a curve view attribute as well, just to have. Great. Okay. And then what we want to do, we want to pin the bottom points. We want to make it so that the bottom points are stuck to the ground while the rest of it can like wave around in the smoke that we've created. So what we're going to do is a group, and we're going to call this pin, and it's going to be a point group. And what we want to do is keep it in bounding regions. So let's make a box here, and let's just make it like super wide, super long, and then hit spacebar 3 on the keyboard to see our side view. Hit enter so we can get our little gizmo, and then just drag this down so that it only includes the bottom point for each one of these things. Okay, great. Then let's do a wrangle. And we're going to go put the group as pin. And there's an attribute that we can create that for Vellum, for the Vellum simulation we're about to do. It's called disable external self. So if we go I at disable external self, it's the longest attribute name in the world. Just change it to 1. And that means it's only going to affect the pin group. Basically what that does is it makes it so it doesn't include the pinned point in the simulation. So it's like if you don't do this, it's fine. It looks okay, but it's sort of like colliding. It makes the collisions a little bit nicer. It basically excludes it from colliding with itself. Okay, and then what we need to do is put down a Vellum hair, Vellum configure hair, and plug that in. And then as a collider, I don't want these to be able to like swivel down below the 0. I want them to collide with the same floor or collide with the grid. So what we'll do is we'll come back up to the grid. We're going to add a poly extrude, and we will extrude this downwards minus 0.354, something like that. Make sure we give it a back, and then we will hit reverse to make this totally cool. And then just plug this into where it says collision geometry into there. So now it should be colliding with this floor. It's just if it hits it, it's not going to go down below. It'll just hit it and bounce back up. Okay, cool. And then the Vellum hair in the settings here, I think most of the things are pretty much default. I do want to, under the pin points, I want to use my pin group. And then we will, come on, there we go. And then I think under the stretch, we can leave that the same. I don't want these to stretch at all, but I do want to make them maybe bend a little more. I think for right now, let's just leave it at the defaults and see how it looks. Okay, and then what we can do, put down a Vellum solver. Just plug these 3 guys in there. Okay, and let's under, I think under forces, simulation, advanced, visualize, solver, a ground position? No, we don't want a ground position. Okay, cool. So if I just hit play, let's just see what happens. It's going to take a second to think. A lot of hairs. They should all just like fall to the ground, I think. Or maybe not. Maybe I have no forces. So under forces, let's make sure gravity is set to 0. And then under let's see. We need to add in our velocity. So basically, let's do pop advect by volumes. And the SOP we want is our, if we go to OBJ, smoke sim, out vel. And we want this to be update force. Yep. And I think that's pretty much it. Something maybe to make this run a little faster for the time being. Let's, under hair gen, we can make the density lower. Let's do like 80. Half splines, right? Yeah, they're there. Okay, cool. And then I think under visualize, let's turn off show collision and show guide geometry. Is that doing anything? Strange. Let me try. There we go. That's better. Turn this off. Turn off that. Hit D on the keyboard. I don't know what it is about the version of Houdini I'm using, but I just constantly have to reset my viewport. Super annoying. Okay, so let's try this again. Now that we have our advection thing happening, it should start doing something from the middle. I can see a little bit of movement. Yep, it's working. Cool, so I don't know if you can see that on my screen, but you can see that these are being pushed outwards. Now, I don't just want the rest of these to stay perfectly straight until the smoke hits them. I want them to like all constantly be moving a little bit. So you can see this is working. It's pushing them. But I want constant motion. I don't want just like standing still grass while only the middle moves. If that's what you want, great, but I don't. So we'll just put a pop force in here. Let's do a couple of pop forces. Pop force here. And we'll call this pop force large. And it's pretty generic. Let's just do an amplitude of 3 with a swirl size of 4 and a pulse length of 3. Great. And then we will put down another one called pop force small. Small. And this one will have an amplitude of 1.5, a swirl size of 0.5, a pulse length of 3, and then we'll just offset it a little bit just to make it different from the first one so it's not the exact same noise. And let's give it a turbulence of 6 just to kind of mess it up a little bit. So now everything should move and then also be advected in the center. So you can see everything is starting to move according to this noise, and then the center part will start to push outwards. Okay, so that is pretty much all I did for the simulation. So I'm going to cache this so that we can actually see what the hell is happening in real time. Let's get a little closer. Maybe that's it. Maybe I can just... Cool, so you can see it working. Great. So I'm going to cache this, and I will come back in a moment. So let's do a Vellum IO, and we'll call this grass cache. Save the disk. All right, I'll just pause it. Shouldn't take too long. It's not really a super heavy sim. Okay, we've got our cache simulation here. You can see it's all wavy everywhere. And then in the center, we've got this sort of outwards explosion thing happening here. Cool. Okay. Okay, something else I'd like to do is I would like to make it so that there's color, a different color where the smoke touches. So what we can do is do an object merge, and we will go to our smoke and go out vel and bring that in here. Okay, and then what we can do is do an attribute from volume. And we'll pipe this in here and this one there. So let's see, volumes to use, points to apply to. Yep, so what I want to do is color. Yep, and then the volume is density. So basically it's creating a mask of white only where the volume touches. And if I want this to be more dense, I can do something like attribute wrangle, put this down, or sorry, not an attribute wrangle, a volume wrangle, because we're working with volumes, volume wrangle. And we'll just do F at density times equals 50. Basically just means multiply the density by 50. So that makes it like a much more strong presence there. So now we have this black and white mask that we can use in our redshift textures. So we can make the white part be a different color than the black part. Pretty cool. Okay. Something else I want to do, we'll put down another wrangle. We're going to do F at speed equals length of V at V. So basically this is creating an attribute, an arbitrary attribute called speed that's a float that's based on the length of the velocity. So basically I can use this as a mask. It creates a black and white mask. Basically the faster parts, the faster moving parts of the grass can have a different color than the slower moving parts of the grass. So it's not really apparent yet. You can't really see it unless, let's see if I go into speed, you can see it. So I can use this mask to create a texture, basically. I like doing that. Okay, and let's put down a null, and we'll just call this out grass. Cool. Most excellent. Okay, and then what I want to do is come up, and I don't need this smoke sim. I don't need to see that. Go into the redshift object under strands. We'll go render object as strands, and we'll go cylinders, and let's just leave it at 1 for right now. Let's put down an RS dome light, and just to see what this looks like, just to get a light on there. Let's go IF basic so I can see go to my asset library. Oops. Go to HDRIs. Just grab, I don't know, I'll do Pro Studios and just get something. I don't know, how about this one? No, this one. Doesn't matter. Just put a light on there, and then RS camera. Hit the lock button. Let's get out of here. Let's kind of position it like this. Kind of center that in frame. Cool. And then I think I want to put down a grid just to have something. Let's just make this uniform scale much larger so that we don't see through the bottom of this. And let's translate this down. Oops. Something like that. And you know what? I forgot to increase the density of the hairs. So I probably need to resimulate this again with a lot more hairs, but let's just, for now, let's just see what this looks like and make sure that everything is working. So let me fire up the Redshift render viewer. Let's see. Okay, so it is working. Excellent. I think that I just need it to be, I just need a lot more grass, basically. Let's pull this out. But it is working. That's cool. Let's just put a texture on this. Let's go Command 1, set a quick mark, go to Materials, Command 2, set a quick mark, RS Material Builder. We'll call this Grass. And we'll come back to the grass tendrils, and under render, hit that. I think I want to make these grass tendrils a little thicker. Let's do 1.3 under the global scale multiplier. See what that does. Yeah, it's a little better. So I definitely want more grass, but for now we can still work on the texture. Let's, I don't know, let's put down an RS point attribute, set to CD, which is our color, and let's just see if that's working. Let's just make sure we can pull that in. So if I hit refresh, the middle should be white, the outside should be black. That is exactly what we want, okay? But we can do a color mix and use this as the mask between the two and make the one side be like blue-ish, I don't know, something like this. And then I can make the middle part be more like green or something like that, but make it more, it's weird, it's so intensely bright like that. Why is it so washed out? Interesting, I wonder why. If I put a ramp here, there we go, that's better. I think it's the values were probably like way higher. It's probably like the white part isn't actually just 1, it's probably like 50, so it's blowing it out. But if we put a ramp, it kind of clamps it to from 0 to 1. So let's bring this back to like a nice color that we actually want. Something like this. And if I want to crank that up, I could probably do new range max. I don't know, 20. I don't know, maybe not. Okay, or old range. No? Interesting. Well, cool. So we know it's working. It's doing the right thing. But I don't know, how could I make this look cooler? So I like to, maybe let's add some metalness to this. Make it just a little bit more metallic. I also really like adding in, I like this IOR, or this thin film thing. Kind of make it like iridescent. Kind of play around with that a little bit. Just kind of swing it into direction like this. I don't know, that's cool. Let's see how that looks kind of cool. So what if I got rid of this guy and just made this be like bluish with I don't know, I'm just kind of messing around here. All right, that's kind of cool. And then what if I do a blender, RS material blender, and this is material 1, and then I do another standard material, and put that in layer 1 color, and then use this mask as a mask between 2 materials. That way, the center part is not only a different color, it could be sort of a different texture too. So let's make this like a vibrant, I don't know, just messing around. How about this blue? But then let's also make it like, give it some subsurface. Something like that. Make the color kind of a blue. Bring the scale down so it's kind of like saturates the color. I don't know, something like that could be kind of cool. And then let's maybe add in some sheen. Give it kind of a whitish, powdery look. So, okay, it's looking cool, but I definitely want to cache with a lot more hairs. So I'm gonna do that because it looks kind of thin, it's kind of hard to see what's happening. So I'm just gonna pause it. Okay, I cached it again with a lot more hairs. I think it's looking better. It's a lot like thicker. So let's go back to materials here. So maybe I don't know. For this one, I'm just messing around here. Let's just make this like a, put this metalness, bring the metalness down just a bit, make it a little bit more like whitish. That's kind of cool. Look like fiber optic cables or something. And then, oh yeah, we have that other attribute, the speed attribute. Let's bring that in. Let's see what that does. See how that affects everything. Let's just refresh this. Ready, set, go. Come on. So that's kind of cool. So if I hit, so we've got this nice mask. So we can now use a ramp. We can take that and let's map it to like plasma or, I don't know, magma or something. Maybe two-tone. That's kind of cool. White to red. That's kind of cool. So maybe the areas of the lower velocity areas are white. The higher area velocities could be like a pinkish, maybe just slightly different than white. So they're kind of like ever changing. And then we'll have this mixed material here that is like blue. Or, I don't know, just messing around here. But you get the point. It's kind of cool what you can do. And then you can just kind of position your camera. What I do, it looks really nice with depth of field. So if you just, or shallow depth of field, just kind of come in close, move up like this. Something like, I don't know, maybe kind of move it down and across, get in really close. Like that. It's kind of cool. And let's go to the camera settings, redshift camera, go to optical, make sure it's like filmic. Let's do turn on bokeh, enable legacy, and just change the aperture to like 2 or 1. And then bring the exposure down to compensate for that. Let's click this guy here and click the center. And then maybe it's like 0.3. Yeah, maybe that. Like a really shallow depth of field. Something like that. So we're really focused on the center, and then we get this blur down here. And maybe the dome light, we can, I don't know, move it around. Try to find a nice, something that, or just kind of rotate it to get some more contrast. Try to find an area that works better. That's looking maybe a little better. Try to get some more shadows cast in there. It's looking a little blown out. Ooh. That's kind of cool. Yeah, something like that could be kind of nice. Something else we can do is, I think we have a curve U attribute, if I'm not mistaken. So what we can do with that is curve U, if you don't know, basically we set that up when we made the grass tendrils, when we resampled them. So if I look at my resample here, and I visualize curve U, let me turn this off here. Let's hover over this and visualize curve U. It basically creates a 0 to 1 value along the length of the spline. So I can use this in my shader to make the bottom part of the grass be a different color from the top part. So let's come back to our shader here, or our camera, and fire this up again. Well, actually, let me go to my material. We'll just duplicate this, and instead of speed, we'll write curve U to bring that attribute in. And let's put down a color mix, and then use this as the mask. So let's just see what that does. Just give it a moment. And then instead of white, let's make it like red to make it really apparent. Now that's too apparent. Let's put down a ramp so that we can kind of define where we want this. So maybe red is just the tips, or let's reverse it so that we still have sort of white at the top, but then red is like the underneath, the underlying part. So you can define like where on the edge you have it. So we can have like just the tips be white and the rest of it is red. Or we can have the tips be like fully white and then just sort of like the underlying part of it is red. I think that looks pretty cool. Nice. Okay. And then just, I don't know, find a nice camera angle. You can zoom out if you want, or zoom really tight in. I don't know, that looks pretty cool to me. So that's basically all I did. It works, it's a fun effect. It gives you this really dynamic looking thing, and it's pretty much just 2 steps. So basically all we do is, just a recap here, we did our smoke sim, just made it sort of this radial outward pushing smoke and cached it so that we have the velocity. And then we just basically make a bunch of lines that we call hairs, and then use a Vellum solver to advect them with the velocity we created. And it's a fun, simple effect. So I hope you guys enjoy that. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.